Welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. I'm your host, Ariane Sommer, and today we journey into the chemistry of connection, the science of trust, and the hidden forces that shape extraordinary human experiences. My guest today is Dr. Paul Zak, neuroscientist, best-selling author, professor of economics, psychology, and management at Claremont Graduate University, and co-founder of the pioneering company Immersion Neuroscience. Paul's groundbreaking research has revealed how neurochemicals like oxytocin build trust, shape moral behavior, and fuel human happiness. He is a founding figure in the field of neuroeconomics and a leader in applying neuroscience to real-world domains like organizational leadership, marketing, and experience design. In this conversation, we explore how extraordinary experiences are engineered, how organizations can foster deeper human connection, even across virtual spaces, and how emerging technologies like neuroscience as a service are transforming industries from healthcare to education to consumer engagement. We also dive deep into profound frontiers, how understanding trust could enhance therapies, how immersion can create lasting, life-changing experiences, and how the brain's deepest codes can be honored rather than manipulated. If you have ever wondered how biology, belief, and belonging weave together to shape the human story, this conversation is a portal.
Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.
Paul, welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. I'm so glad we get to connect.
Thank you, Ariane. I'm happy to be here with you, and we'll do some interesting and fun stuff. I hope. Let's have some fun.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And definitely interesting because your body of work is quite something, to put it into very low-key words. You actually have made significant contributions to understanding the neuroscience between human connection, trust, and happiness. And there's so many topics I'm really curious about. You've written amazing books, so we'll talk about all of these things that I had difficulty to actually narrow down for what I want to talk about. But I would like to start with something that really resonated with me, touched something inside of me. Your work, particularly on oxytocin as a driver of human behavior, I found your insights quite groundbreaking. And your research, it highlighted the profound impact of oxytocin on trust, on social bonding. And so let's talk about basic things first. Can you give us a bird's eye view on oxytocin and why this is so important and why it has such profound implications for us as human beings, as individuals, and also a human family?
Yeah. So starting in the late 90s, I got very interested in my research lab on why we saw so much good behavior among humans. The bad behavior gets the press, but people helping each other, saying please and thank you, letting someone go in front of you in traffic, that's actually hard to study because in the bad stuff, it's easy to provoke bad behavior in the lab, it turns out. But really, it's the good behavior that makes the world run, right? If everyone behaves badly, and this is the view of evolutionary biology, if nature is red in tooth and claw, then you need a policeman on every corner because everyone's going to steal, maim, mangle, whatever, murder. We don't see that. So there has to be an explanation for why that is. Moreover, human beings like being around strangers, by and large. I think you've lived in a bazillion countries. I've traveled to, I don't know, 50 countries. And almost always, I've been in the rainforest of Papua New Guinea. I was uncomfortable for the first half an hour, and then I started hanging out with the village I was embedded in and started playing with the kids, and some weird, tall, white guy from California. And yeah, they're like, whatever, you're a human. So there's got to be an explanation. So I started investigating what that might be. And there was a rich animal literature about a neurochemical called oxytocin that appears in animals to help animals recognize other members of their species who appear safe or related to them. So these are like rodents, right? So I sniff and I go, oh, that's Ariane. she's cool. So I release oxytocin and then I can congregate with you or huddle up, stay warm or stay safe or whatever that is. So I thought, okay, could we measure this in humans? Humans make this. It's known to be associated with birth and breastfeeding, but the behavioral effects have really not been measured. And so, long story short, we developed a protocol to measure oxytocin release in humans in blood. In animals, you drill into the skull. I don't know a ton about the humans, but I'm guessing me drilling into their skulls are not going to be really a cool thing. And then we did the first oxytocin infusion intranasally into the brain. So anyway, we learned a lot about this neurochemical, and it really seems to index the value that we get from social interactions. So if I see, oh, you're a nice person, you seem safe, I'll release some oxytocin. So the more I release, the more it says, oh, here's a person I want to interact with. So if we meet in person for a coffee, I'll release some oxytocin. If my daughter walks in the room, I'll release more. Sorry about that, but that's just the way the biology set us up. So what it tells us is it gives us a way to objectively measure the value our brain gets from social interactions. Here's the best part of this. This system, like all systems in the brain, is dynamic. It's tunable. So the more we induce the brain to release oxytocin, the more we are used to it, the more likely we are to increase that release and have better social connections. And then finally, as social connections explain about half of our happiness, the quality of our social relationships. That means we can actually control a lot of our happiness by improving our social connections.
And not only does it impact our happiness, as we know at the latest since the book Blue Zones, or some people may have seen it as a documentary, this also supports our longevity, our lifespan, as well as health span. So speaking about instances, events that make us release oxytocin. You mentioned your daughter walking into the room. You mentioned maybe you and I meet for a coffee and we bond. Breastfeeding, of course, and giving birth. Women release enormous amounts of oxytocin when they give birth. It's actually also why they're not supposed to take oxytocin, for example, as a supplement when they're pregnant, because it may induce birth. But let's talk about everyday situations. How can we, if we seek to enhance our oxytocin production, what can we do?
Yeah, we've investigated that in some detail. So, number one, for anyone, I don't know, under 60, not looking at your phone. I'm going to make eye contact with you. Hi, Ariane, how are you? I can introduce myself. I can shake hands. As I'm famous for hugging people, we show that touch releases oxytocin. So when I meet someone new, almost always, depending on the situation, I'll say, they put their hand on, like, oh, I hug everybody. And they generally like light up and I give them a hug. That's a hack, right? Who do you hug? People you like, people that you know. And so I'm tricking your brain to thinking that I'm someone safe. And the nice thing is I'm old enough that it's not weird. I hug guys, I hug women. I'm not a threat to anybody. Although I would happy to have a battle with you if you really want to. But so lots of things. Any movement together will do it. Singing, dancing, taking a walk together, playing a sport. So almost anything you do in unison with somebody else will induce that reciprocal oxytocin release. One way to think about this is I can't make my own brain release oxytocin, but I can give that gift to somebody else. I can do some kindness, them hold the door, smile, whatever that is, and then they'll generally reciprocate. We both live in Southern California. I think it's required that if someone lets you cut in front of them in traffic, you give them the thank you wave, right? That's just good. So if someone doesn't give you a thank you wave, then you're angry, right? So look, I'm doing something nice for you, you do something nice for me. So I believe oxytocin is the biological basis for the golden rule. You're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Now, there's an anti-golden rule. What's interesting to know about these underlying neurologic mechanisms is you can ask what enhances oxytocin release and what inhibits it. So two major inhibitors. One is high levels of stress. I'm super stressed out. I'm in survival mode, and the neurochemicals associated with that inhibit oxytocin release, right? So I'm just trying to get through the next 5 minutes. I can't think about you. I can't be nice. And we all have that experience, right? Where you've been cranky with somebody, maybe even someone you like or love. And then the next day you go, man, I was a jerk yesterday. I was having a bad day. The dog died. I got in a car accident. And we understand that. And the second, which may or may not surprise listeners, is high levels of testosterone inhibit oxytocin release. So oxytocin facilitates social connections psychologically by increasing empathy. Who are the least empathic people on the planet? teenage boys who have testosterone poisoning, right? I used to be one. And you've seen plenty of them. So that it means that we adapt. Now, what's interesting about these systems, as I said, they're dynamic. So if a man is in a committed relationship, his testosterone falls, which means his likelihood of increasing oxytocin, releasing oxytocin increases. And if you have children as a man, your testosterone falls further. And only based on my own experience, if you have girl children and you pick out little frilly dresses every day, you become a girly man and you're just super sweet and nice. So we modulate, or nature helps us modulate our behavior given the social environment in which we're embedded.
Yes, thank you for painting this picture. You make this really easy to understand, and these are actually highly complex processes. I really appreciate the way you are capable of communicating about this. Not all high level and highly intellectual people have that skill. I can't help but think about when you shared that, of course, stress is very detrimental to oxytocin. If we look at the world we live in now, especially in our Western societies, where a lot of us are daily under very high stress, make the money, make the rent, put food on the table, take care of the family, et cetera, et cetera. Then, of course, we are bombarded by news. We don't, as you mentioned before, we don't really talk about when people do something nice for each other, but it's the dramatic and the awful things that get reported. Obviously, they hook our brain because it's primed to focus on something that's a potential threat. And now we're about to have another election. We've already seen some of the fallout of that in the last week. How can we ensure that we get through these times that seem to be mixed in with a lot of upheaval seems to mix into these times? What are some things that we can consciously seek out? You mentioned, for example, dancing and singing. If I look at societies, indigenous cultures, where gathering together, singing and dancing, it's a habit, right? We don't really have that anymore.
We really have to get out of the house. Part of it is being around other people. So we've actually done a lot of work in the last couple of years post-COVID on return to the office. And sure, it's nice to sit at home and work in stretchy pants and not have to get in the car and drive somewhere. But it's really important for us to be around other human beings. And by the way, the brain's very promiscuous in how it gets value socially, emotionally. So playing with a dog, watching a movie, right? All those create social emotional values. This larger evaluation network that uses both dopamine and oxytocin, I've called immersion. It's the value your brain assigns second by second to experiences. And so you can get it lots of ways, but the most effective way is in-person human interactions. And it's actually not that hard. We have research coming out in the next week or so, maybe 10 days, quantifying how much social interaction you need neurologically to be emotionally fit. And it turns out you need between 4 and 6 of these peak immersion moments that last about 3 minutes or longer that are very valuable to you. 4 a day is not a lot. 6, you're killing it. 6 means you have high energy, you have a high mood. But even at 4, you're going to be in good shape. You're not going to build your emotional fitness, but you'll sustain. So that's a 3-minute window where I've got to do something extraordinary with somebody else. Again, it can occasionally happen at movies. And in my recent book, Immersion, I talk about watching the movie La La Land with my daughter in the theater and crying at the end. You saw that movie. Come on, it's just the sweetest thing ever. And then watching it at home by myself later, I know the whole movie. I'm crying at the end again too, right? So that's a very valuable experience to me. And so I can get it asynchronously, but really getting out there and doing things and activity, right? So what we've done the last year is to create a technology that actually measures neurologic immersion second by applying data to smartwatches, and it links to your calendar. So you'll get a report every day. What are those peak immersion moments? So give me more of that. And what are the troughs I want to avoid? So in my view, if you want to live a longer, happier, healthier life, you've got to make better decisions about that 50% of your happiness that's due to your social interactions. So if I find out that I'm meeting with you in an hour and my app tells me, oh, those meetings, Ariane, always fabulous. You don't need coffee. This is going to be great. I'm like, I'm primed now to have a great experience. Or you're going to meet Bob at 2:00 and those meetings are always awful. So you might want to meditate beforehand or take a walk or phone a friend or right, all those things that help us build up that base of support. So really thinking really smartly about how to make choices, particularly those social choices that can drive up or drive down our neurologic immersion.
Outstanding, Paul. And I personally have had the really beautiful experience. Since a year and a half, I co-founded a women's circle because a dear friend of mine and I were thinking, but we do need to foster more connection. We do need to foster more support and meaningful moments. We're lacking this a little bit right now. So why don't we just create it? And sometimes the things that we need most, just take the step and create it. Beautiful things grow out of it, particularly if you create a foundation for other humans to meet in a safe space, in a space where you trust each other and can have beautiful, meaningful experiences together. What you just shared, for me also, it really directs my thoughts towards the application. How can we apply this, for example, in therapeutic settings? Let's think about conditions such as PTSD or social anxiety, depression, and such.
So I love that you created this group, and I hope you guys will meet in person. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
amazing that even getting to know someone for a short period of time, you can really feel a sense of connection and bonding to them where you can really open up and share. And real tip for listeners, if you open up and share something that's private or emotional, usually the next person, if they're normal, their next person will do the same thing. So you can begin that process of really a deep connection just by opening up. And so one recommendation is use an adjective. So oftentimes we see someone say, "Hey, Ariane, how are you? How are you?" But if I say, "Hey, hi, how are you?" You look at an adjective. Happy, sad, worried, tired. Now we have a whole different emotional conversation, right? And I think that signals to that other person that, oh, I want to actually have a deeper conversation than this trivial, how's the weather today? So anyway, I've worked on all these little tricks to do that. From the mental health perspective, I am passionate about trying to combat the explosion in mental health disorders we've seen in the last 20 years. Absolute explosion, particularly among younger people. So how do we do that? The first is, in my view, having many close friends who are psychiatrists. Psychiatry is an art, not a science, because you're using a clinical evaluation of this person's signs and symptoms. If I'm tired, if I'm hungry, and I'm a psychiatrist, I may evaluate you differently. So we have developed the first bioassay in psychiatry that not only identifies when you're in these immersion troughs where you're just checked out neurologically and you need someone to bump you out, and that could be therapy, it could be meds, but it could be a friend, and what it means to really be thriving neurologically. And so we've shown is that we can predict whether you're happy or sad with 98% accuracy using these data. And we've made this app free for anyone forever so that you can do the things that you're doing, but now at scale, which is you can form groups of friends in which your friends won't see your data, they'll just see red or green. So say, oh, Ariane's in the red zone. I'm going to send her a heart or a thumbs up or a message and make sure she knows that someone in the world cares about her, right? And that often is enough when you're in this little trough to bounce people out. So I think the only way to resolve the many mental health disorders we're seeing is to have an objective bioassay and have a predictive one that tells me not I'm in a deep hole now and now I need, but I'm heading in that direction and I can get bounced out. So yeah, that's the kind of focus of my work for the next 5 to 10 years is really developing additional bioassays in psychiatry, again, so people can live longer, healthier, and happier lives.
Beautiful. And that being said, the advancement of therapies right now, for example, in all of the US states, ketamine IV is legal as long as it's prescribed by a doctor. We're looking at potentially the descheduling of other substances such as MDMA. This may take a little longer than anticipated. It was supposed to get rescheduled this August, or psilocybin and such. What are your thoughts on the psychedelics, or in the case of ketamine, dissociatives, being used to heal people who are dealing with disease of the mind or emotions?
Yeah, I think the efficacy has been, particularly those with refractory symptoms, has been very strong. There are some negative effects. Yeah, I think the ketamine data are very strong. I think the psilocybin hypnotics, I think that's a little more varied. Set and setting matters a lot, it looks like, for those therapies, where ketamine just, it does its job. It's a kind of a reset. But even things like electroconvulsive therapies, transcranial magnetic stimulation, there are a lot of really good therapies in psychiatry. I have a daughter preparing for medical school, and I said, think about psychiatry. There's so much that is just absolutely changing in psychiatry. My wife's a neurologist, and the rap 20 years ago in neurology was great diagnoses, no treatments. But now we have so many treatments for neurologic disorders, from stroke to Parkinson's to MS. And so I think the same thing is happening now in psychiatry. It's going to be a brave new world, and it really requires both the scientific community and the clinical community and an open set of patients who are willing to say, hey, this is not working for me. For example, as you guys know and all your listeners know, SSRIs work for maybe the first one you try works for maybe a third of those patients. And the mechanisms are very complicated. They're not about serotonin necessarily. It's about neuron growth and other things. And so we really don't know why SSRIs work or don't work. So if we don't fully understand why ketamine works or why psilocybin works, doesn't mean we shouldn't try this. Again, maybe not at a first line therapy, but maybe at a second or third line. Yeah, I'm very positive on all these.
I like your perspective, Paul. I personally also think that's the right approach. We have, amongst other, one of our endeavors is a longevity clinic where we offer all kinds of protocols to enhance health, well-being, and a big pillar of this is also ketamine IV. And in a clinical setting, of course, with a prescribing doctor and registered nurses and nurse practitioners. And the changes in the demeanor, in the life outlook, and the entire human being that we've seen over the past 3 years has truly been phenomenal. And this is just one aspect, like ketamine, of what is changing and what is becoming available to us. I personally think the more tools we have, the better, instead of this one blanket solution for everyone. And you mentioned before immersion, right? And this is another incredible book that you wrote, Immersion, the Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness. And in the book, you actually explain how these extraordinary experiences can be engineered by understanding and leveraging the brain's immersion response. Can you break that down for us a bit, please?
Right. So from a business perspective, we live in the experience economy, right? If we add an experience to whatever we're selling, product or service, it adds value for the consumer, creates a craving to repeat that experience, share that experience. No one disagrees on this. Great. How do I do it? Guess, hope, do a survey. NPS is bogus, as you probably know. Maybe 15% of people fill it out, and usually it's those people who have a good experience. So that's not good data. So yeah, in this work we've done, extending the work of oxytocin into how the brain values social emotional experiences, we were able to identify this network that I called immersion. This is a 1-second frequency signal coming out of the brain, and capture that data from smartwatches and fitness wearables by applying algorithms to the cloud. So it turns out your brain's connected to a body. And this brings us back to mental health as well. In the olden days, it's like mental disorders and then medical disorders. They're all medical. It's all an organism, right? There's no hard separation here. So it's the same thing when we think about designing experiences. There's no hard separation between what you are feeling and your ability to have that experience physiologically, right? If you could tell me how good this experience was on self-report, I wouldn't need technology. So I'm looking for a prop. So if I can tell you how much I like these mints, compared to what? Compared to my kids? Forget my kids. They talk back to me. Compared to my dog's perfect, right? My dog's a 10 out of 10. But I can't compare mints to a dog. But brain activity, neural firing rates are very comparable across individuals. So once we know what to measure, we can help content creators by using our software platform measure second by second what that experience is like. Let me give you a concrete example and a call to action. Concrete example is a recent subscriber to our software platform is a high-end restaurant chain, $200 plus meals for 2 people. And so they wanted to actually create great customer experiences. Good on them. They asked me, hey, before you talk to us, we're going to give you an open check. Take a friend to one of our restaurants, just undercover, measure your immersion, which you can do with smartwatches, and just how would you find? Great, sit down, meal was great, and then nothing. Don't see the wait staff. Wait staff was great. Food was great. And then finally they come to my table with an iPad and check me out. I spent $250 for two people for lunch. What about a photo? What about loyalty? Nothing. They just sent me off and they're like, this must have been a great experience. We're so happy. Nothing. They were like, okay, thanks, guys. See you later. That's, again, maybe I can get that on a self-report, but when you see the data like really high, oh, it really dropped off, not just on the checkout, but on the whole thing. So the call to action is, I think that organizations have a sacred duty to create peak immersion experiences for their customers, both for sustainability, to keep their businesses running so they can employ these people, they can create profits, but also because it trains our brains to release more oxytocin, more dopamine, so that we learn to be more present, more emotionally open, and we live better and happier lives. My goal.
Yes, beautiful. What you just said is so relatable. You can sit in the most wonderful high-end surroundings if there's not a connection somehow that is formed. And if you feel like you're just treated like a number in and out and checked out via the iPad, even if the food was great and the service was, there was no problem with the service, but not really feeling seen, not really feeling valued as the individual that you are. Most of us go back to places because we feel welcome as who we are. And there's certain little things that trigger this feeling welcome. I'm really curious, Paul, what are some of the core technologies? We can get nitty-gritty here behind this immersion neuroscience, and how do you actually enable this real-time measurement of the brain activity? Like, how do I have to imagine that?
Yeah, it took me 20 years because I work slow. A lot of this was funded by the US taxpayer, so it's nice to give back. What we found is to have a great experience, you have to have two core components. One is you've got to be present. If you're distracted doing something else, it's not going to be a great experience. That's why I said earlier, put away the phone. The second is that experience has to generate sufficient emotional resonance. So emotions are how we tag experiences as valuable. So if I'm present and an emotional resonance, which is driven by oxytocin, increases. So I have this real weird interplay between dopamine, which is the presence chemical, and oxytocin, which is the emotion chemical. They reinforce each other and they have effects on the rest of the body. So we actually found we can pull these signals from the cranial nerves. There's the output file, the connection between the brain and the rest of the body. And guess what? Some of those pass through your heart. So we can use a standard heart rate wearable in your smartwatch or fitness sensor and wrote code that lets infer this activity in real time using cloud computing. And yeah, 6 years ago, launched a software platform so that anyone could measure this. So the restaurant can have better service so that 80% of movies wouldn't lose money. That's shocking. In the last 30 years, 80% of movies lose money. We published research recently showing that using immersion, we can predict hit songs 3 months in advance with 98% accuracy. Because your brain knows, right? If you haven't heard the song before, you think this is a hit, do you like it? That doesn't predict it all on self-report, but your brain somehow knows that this is a really valuable experience. And think about how many, particularly young musicians, struggle to get anyone to listen to their music, to really get good at this craft they're trying to develop. Now there's a tool to do that, right? Again, for me, not only am I interested in helping people live longer and happier lives, who wants a crappy experience, right? I want to go to the DMV and have a great experience. I want to go to wherever, see a great movie. And so by having these tools, we don't have to guess anymore or just ask people their experiences. For me, my pet peeve word is the word liking. I don't care if you like the experience on self-report. What I care is that it doesn't shake up your brain so much you go, holy crap, this is so exciting. I got to do this again. I got to talk about it. So that's why we developed this technology.
That's awesome, Paul. And of course, there's the commercial applications or commercial contexts. But do you have maybe some examples where this has been successfully applied, maybe in education or mental health, to revert back to mental health?
Yeah. Yes, and wonderful question. So let's talk about education. One of our longest term subscribers to the platform, which we've had around for 6.5 years, is Accenture, right? Giant global professional services company. Accenture is about an $18 billion revenue company, and they spend about $1 billion every year training their employees, upskilling them to create more value. That's a huge investment. And they only evaluated the ROI from that investment with that post-event survey, Ariane, that we've all done a million times. Did you like the keynote speaker? How was the lunch? I don't care. Did that information stick in your brain so that when you get back in the office on Monday, you can create value for the organization. And by the way, for the employee, him or herself, it's great to have new skills that you can bring out to help your colleagues and your clients. So they started using our technology, Accenture, and they found that in their trainings, people cannot stay neurologically immersed for more than 20 minutes without a change in task. So they've revamped their training into 20-minute modules. So for example, a facilitator for that training may speak for more than 20 minutes, set up what you're going to do, and then you switch and do 20 minutes of table work, and then you switch and do maybe 20 minutes of debriefing. They've also found, because immersion is metabolically costly, that people are tired. This sort of short, intensive learning is much better than sitting on your butt for 8 hours and being bored for most of it. And so they put longer breaks in so people can actually recover. So that to me is just a data-driven science approach to creating better training. Education, I'm just going to leave off, but it really allows us to customize for each student. Like, why are we housing students by age at all? That just seems insane to me. Why don't we just give you goals and modules and you progress at the rate you're progressing, and our technology can tell you if you actually absorb that information effectively before you take a test, because the brain's, again, assigning value to that experience. And if that value is low because, say, the teacher was talking in a monotone, or I don't know, lots of reasons, or you're just tired or whatever, then the technology can say, hey, by the way, take a break, redo this module tomorrow because it just didn't get in your brain so well. Finally, mental health. Yeah, the free app, anyone can get it. It's called Tuesday. You can get it at besttuesday.com, and just pulls data from your smartwatch, so we infer brain activity from the cranial nerves, and gives you goals every day to build your emotional fitness. Like, that to me is just the first step at improved mental health. Like, am I doing the things that help me sustain my emotional fitness? And I say fitness and not wellness, because wellness sounds like you're either well or unwell. But just like physical fitness, emotional fitness can be built, and it's built in general by connecting to others. So now we've come full circle in our conversation, right? Your women's group that you formed, all this is absolutely essential to good emotional health. And what's the opposite of that? When we see people socially withdraw, that's a very strong indicator of both poor emotional health, but also poor physical health. So many physical disorders, heart failure, Parkinson's, autoimmune diseases, are preceded by this social withdrawal, which often the person doesn't know because they're just adapting to their internal somatic environment. And so I think for everybody, just having a goal, here's what I should be doing, and here's the days where I'm doing it well, or the events I'm doing it well in, so that I can sustain that emotional fitness and avoid mental health disorders, which will affect, at least once in your lifetime, about 1 in 3 Americans will face depression once in their lifetime at least. It's a lot of people, right? There's 100 million people. Let's knock that down to 50 million. Let's cut it in half by, again, proactively helping people manage their own emotional health.
Yes, absolutely. And it goes so far beyond, quote, just unquote, the individual suffering. Whenever someone is suffering, their friends, their loved ones are drawn into that as well. And then just even if you don't care about suffering, if you just look at it from an economic perspective, are people productive? Can people live up to their full potential? When somebody is depressed, in most cases, they cannot. What you just said about the social withdrawal, that really struck a chord with me. My father has been diagnosed with Parkinson's probably 12, 13 years ago now. And after he got retired, he was a career diplomat all of his life, ambassador for Germany. That's also how I grew up in so many different places. He completely socially withdrew. When one identifies with the work that one has done and when it was truly a calling, and then that is gone, that really makes sense what you just shared. It's so important to keep these social connections going and focus on our emotional health. I think a lot of people, especially from the older generations, may have, and even now younger generations, we're not taught that taking care of our emotional health is really important. And then we're facing the consequences, which sometimes may be irreversible.
Yeah, how's your father doing now?
He's doing well. He's well taken care of, and it's at a later stages of the disease. It's being well managed, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think part of that management, if possible, is social interactions. So you had a tremor, right? So I think if you can get over that, I may look a little weird. It's really important. So I'll give you an example, if I may. I'm a big introvert, so I can spend 12 hours in a lab working away, not talk to anybody. But then based on my own research, I realized, oh, that's actually not healthy for me. When I turned 50, I had 4 surprise birthday parties thrown for me. Why? Because I'm such a wonderful person? No, because I actually started investing in relationships. I started saying, oh, this is an important part of my total health life plan. I've got to have those really strong relationships. And so, yeah, I just started spending more time socializing, which seems weird, right? I'm a busy guy, I got 3 jobs, blah, blah, blah. It's that important that you've got to make that investment because if you invest in other people, if they're going to be friends, they will reciprocate and invest in you. So here's one suggestion that I try to do every day. Try to every day tell one person that you love them.
Mhm.
Simple goal, right? For me, I need simple tasks I can do every day. And so could be a friend. How nice it is when so I'm 62, so I've had friends for 40 years and to have someone that you've known forever call you up and go, hey man, I love you. Just want to make you, I'm like, oh man, I got these great friends. How lucky am I? So family, of course, tell your family you love them. But to have friends that you've chosen, they've chosen to hang out with you, it's not a terrible thing to do. And it really can make a difference that this person is connected to you.
Yes, for sure, Paul. And what you just shared about you being an introvert, that resonates with me too. Those who know me well know I'm actually quite introverted. You can spend hours in the lab. I can spend hours researching something or writing. And I do notice though that after a while, if I have the opportunity, if my husband's traveling and I'm left to my own devices, I may go for 2 days without talking to anyone. And first I feel really happy about that. Yes, I get to be a hermit. And then within 24 to 48 hours, I actually noticed something like not so happy mood setting in. So there is something real happening on a neurological, on a biochemical level where I realize, hey, as much as I like to retreat, it is not healthy for me to actually to do this for too long, which is also why in the last years I have actually taken steps for these interventions, if you may call them, like building communities and making sure to in person also be with patients or with clients or yeah, all these things. And it just makes for a much more balanced and healthy, happy life.
And it does get easier, right? I think excuse me for interrupting, but for listeners, I do a lot of self-experiments like probably you do too. And I decided some years ago to speak to people in elevators
Ah,
just to practice saying hi to people. And you guys can try this who are listening. What I found is about half the people, first of all, kind of freaked out, which somehow makes me happy. We're other humans in a box. I know there are humans there. We can say hi to each other. And the other half, I have this wonderful little 20 or 30-second conversation. Often it's in a hotel or something like, oh, where are you coming in from? It's very natural. And this is really pleasant. And so, like you, I'm not always talking to people every day. Practicing that skill, I think, is really important. We've actually shown that you can get between 50 and 80% of the immersion of an in-person interaction when you have video communication, so video conferencing, FaceTime, all that. So if you can't meet those people in person, yeah, set up a Zoom call, set up a FaceTime call, and just for fun, right? Just make it easy. So the more bandwidth, right? If I'm seeing your face, you're smiling, I'm getting actually a lot more immersion than if I was just, say, on the phone with you, where I can't see you, or texting. So that FaceTime, I'm not making the Apple product promotion. Seeing a person physically, either in person or video conference, will actually add more value neurologically than not talking to them, but certainly texting.
yes, 100%, Paul. And I love that you talk to people in elevators. I have this one habit that I curated years ago out of an own. I used to be very poorly react to compliments. If you would compliment me on, let's say, my skill of languages, which I just acquired as a child living in different countries, I would point out like, oh yeah, but my mathematics is really not. Or if you'd say, oh, your skin looks great today. Oh, you should have seen me a week ago. I had this huge zit. So from that, and then also realizing how beautiful it is to receive a heartfelt compliment, and to move out of this introvertedness, I started when there was something real that I found beautiful or inspiring about another person, I would tell them, complete strangers, I would compliment them. Your hair looks so lovely. Oh my goodness, you smell really nice. That is such a happy scent. Or that was so you just this moment ago when you opened the door for the lady over there. And it's so easy now. And it gives me such joy. It gives the other people such joy. And you're like a cosmic meter fairy. You're just putting little joy dimes all around the universe.
I love that so much. Yeah, it's great. And it's not hard. And it is somehow amusing. So it's good for your brain, but also you're giving that gift to another person. And how wonderful is that? And to be able to go home and go, oh, this lovely German woman told me that she liked my hair and it made me feel so good. Like, why are we not doing more of that? I think we should really make it a priority. And it's a great way to connect. And then every once in a while, and I'd love to hear your experience, I'll have that short conversation. And then you go, hey, we live in the same area or we're interested in the same things. All of a sudden you exchange phone numbers and then you become friends. And the nice thing is you can form those friendships even later in life. As my kids have gotten out of the house now, I actually have free time. Shocking. And I've been able to form amazing friendships with 5 guys. We'll go and do stupid guy stuff and get dirty. And these guys have my back. Like I call these the 3 a.m. friends. You can call them at 3 a.m. and go, I got a crisis. I need you here now. And they'll show up. Like, how awesome is that? So I think if you have a couple of these 3 a.m. kind of friends, you're really in good shape, but it requires reaching out, making that first comment so that you have that sense of connection.
Absolutely, Paul. And as you just said, out of these brief interactions, true friendships can develop. And at any age, that's the beauty. Once we open up, the world opens up to us. I have a question, just this may be, what you call it, not counterproductive, but counter energetic. My German brain is not picking the right English word. But before, when you spoke about create musicians and creating these responses in the audience where you said you would know that how a song would be a hit. Have you ever applied this to writing and in particular fiction writing?
We have not, but a little bit. So it turns out that we've done experiments where people read text. And again, I'm a behavioral neuroscientist, so I'm always interested in, can I influence your behavior? We've done lots of experiments. We use different stimuli to see if we can influence what people do, and then look at the brain activity that drives that. That's how we discovered this state I've called immersion. But text is difficult because it doesn't have as much emotional content, which is the driver for actions, emotions are, as does voice or video. So video is really effective. Again, more bandwidth. We did work with, I'll suppress the name of the movie studio, with one of the movie studios pre-COVID that was using our technology to evaluate scripts. They did that by using table reads. So for people who are not in the Hollywood section, like Ariane and I, table reads are when you have actors who just sit at a table and they actually read their parts, but in character, right? So you get that emotional response. So for script readings, we actually got really good signal. I could identify when that story went flat, how they could edit it, how they could improve it. But for fiction, no, unless it's read.
Interesting. Yes, and the question was purely selfish. On my account, I've published a few books, so I was really curious, how could I apply all this amazing work Paul has done to my future work? Anyways, was worthwhile to ask.
Can you send me a clip in English? Send me 3 or 4 minutes. We'll send it to our free panel and I'll give you feedback. How about that?
I would love to do that. Thank you so much.
You have my
Definitely.
email because we set this up. Yeah, so we do this for free all the time. And so again, we have a commercial product that movie studios use, a couple of TV networks use to, for example, look at new fall shows. They're testing content all the time. And that's discussed in the book. I have to suppress the names of those networks, but you could probably guess. There's only 4, right? Okay. Having said that, yeah, we have a commercial product and we have technologists to help develop it. And people will send in clips of stuff all the time and we'll test it for free just to show them how the technology works. So I'm happy to send that to our free panel. And now because we've been on here for an hour, we're friends anyway. So got to help out your friends.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate it. And I know we have barely scratched the surface of this. There's so many more questions I would have, but I also respect your time. In closing, is there something particularly that you would wish people would know and could apply to their own lives in order to elevate themselves and also elevate the rest of the human experience? Is there something that's on your heart that you'd like the audience to consider?
Say, even if you're the most selfish person in the world and you want to live longer and healthier, you've got to be of service to other people. That's how you build strong social connections. And those strong social connections are the key to being healthy, being happy, and extending your health span. So it's really giving to others that creates value in our own selves. And that's the interesting paradox of being a human, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. And for people who'd like to learn more about you, connect with you, how can they do so?
They can go to getimmersion.com. Happy to respond to emails there, immersion with an I. And as I mentioned earlier, our free emotional fitness product is at besttuesdayever.com. By the way, we have version 2 coming out, has a new name. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Rebranded, better UX, more features. It'll be out September 15. It's going to be free. Again, there's a premium version. People can pay for that if they want to, but I really want to help people be happy, have improved mental health, and live fuller lives. And so I spent 30 years of my life developing this technology. I want as many people to use it as possible. My goal, if I may say it, is in 3 years, we have 1 billion people on the planet using this technology who are building up their emotional fitness every day.
Outstanding, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll make sure to put all of this in the show notes. And also in September, when you have the rebrand, we will adapt. Of course, it was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're lovely. Thank you so much.